mediation itself, the members of the National Assembly had proposed a reduction of your or the county's shareable revenue to below even what you were to receive last year. They had proposed a slash to 380 billion. But for us as the Senate, and this is why, Governor, you need to speak to your colleagues, especially in the COG, we feel like the governors don't appreciate the work that the Senate does. If you hear some of the pronouncements from your colleagues directed at members of this House, it is as if they don't understand the work that we do. We have fought, and on principle, we have agreed with the National Assembly on three things. That number one, counties will never receive less than what they received in the previous or preceding financial year. Number two, that if there is a shortfall in revenue, the person or the entity to bear that is the national government. And thirdly, that Governor, year on year, Senate has always to demonstrate, the national government has always to demonstrate increase in the resources that the county governments receive. So whereas you're telling us that the COG is not happy with the 387, I would be more happy, Governor, if you were saying that we saved you 7 billion Kenya shillings that was going to be removed from the allocation to county governments. Because as you know, you are a Senate, a mediation process does not get you entirely what you wanted. And I was getting a bit concerned because your colleagues were threatening to shut down counties, including some from my own political party, and I didn't understand why they were crying like that, instead of allowing the Senate to conclude that process. So, in terms of fighting for counties, I think this Senate has done very well, but we don't see reciprocity in terms of just basic respect from members, not you personally, but from some of the members of the COG. And I know you had ambitions to be chair of COG. I don't know how the campaigns went, but you need to be able to pass a message to your colleagues that some of the pronouncements really demoralize the Senate in our work.
You see, if we debate this matter, we can take the entire day because they are pertinent. And there are issues that are of great concern, but we've got a brief before us today that we must do justice to. But just linking the brief before us to this conversation so that we go back to the numbers, is that these reports that we've directed the Auditor General to do a deep analysis on is part of the financing mechanisms for Nairobi City County. For the financial year ended 30th June 2023, you had reported a collection of 10.5 billion Kenya shillings as per the report of the receiver of revenue. Now, 10.5 billion means that on average you're collecting 29 million per day. 29 million per day. Every single hour you're collecting 1.2 million. So the 1 hour that we have spent here, Nairobi has collected about 1.2 million and about 20,000 per minute. Of course, there are many Kenyans who believe that these numbers, with automation, with greater efficiencies, that Nairobi should collect much more than the 10.5 billion that is here. You are complaining about the revision of revenue, which we all share, that the 387 billion is not sufficient to support even the basic operations of counties when you think about the non-discretionary expenditure that has been loaded to county governments. I think it would not be fair for us to proceed without querying your plans and strategies for financing of Nairobi City County. Because this 10.5 billion plus your share of the 387 billion is not going to transform Nairobi into the modern metropolis that it ought to be. So outside whatever you're collecting from Gikomba, and outside whatever the national government gives county governments thinking that it's a favor, and yet it's a constitutional right, what are the other options for financing of Nairobi City County that you have in place right now? I know you've told us about green bonds, but those are futuristic. What is it that you're doing over and above the 10.5 billion and whatever it is the Senate is going to allocate to Nairobi?
Thank you, Chair. kindly allow me just 1 minute to, because I'm very passionate about devolution. We've been together in this house, and even previously when I was in the lower house, we were together in a committee which I chaired, and I must say I am continuously astounded by your growing wisdom, and how you manage these issues. You're doing very well, which is true, because for the first 5 years I chaired, and I think you learned, and you're very good.
Order, Governor,
it's a compliment.
It is a general rule that when a governor praises a senator, then there's a problem.
No.
So I might want to ask you to withdraw your flowery comment.
I will withdraw the praise. Chair, on DORA, if you look at 217B and PFM, I think 191.3A, a very dangerous precedent has been set, where CARA is being used to amend DORA. If you look at that, the memorandum that came, it is challengeable. And 219 says specifically that when there's a shortfall, it must be borne by the national government. So we are grateful, and I will talk to my colleagues, because it is not right to disparage the Senate in its efforts. I believe the Senate has done a great job in pushing for us. Of course, in this mediation, maybe the approach could have been different, but that is crying over spilt milk. Because if the 30 days...
Just give me a sec.
But we understand the macroeconomic issues, and I believe we'll grow. The point you've raised is very important, as I now move to what you've asked. Devolution, and I will also table to you a publication I did in 2010 with the International Commission of Jurists on the fiscal and operationalization of an operational framework for fiscal decentralization. The operational and legal framework for it. There are 4 principles, but we only focus on one as counties, and sometimes even as Senate. The first one, of course, devolution is based on the principle of subsidiarity. That a service is best offered at the lowest level compatible with the benefit of that service. The first thing you look at is what are the constitutional responsibilities of each level. So that is the expenditure responsibility. That is in the 4th schedule, and that is costing of functions. The second principle you then look at is then what are the revenue raising measures? That is chapter 12 of the Constitution. That we cannot deal with income tax and such. Last year we did the historical high of 12.8 billion. A county should be able to discount the present value of that amount for the next 10-15 years to get close to 400 billion. If you want to do serious infrastructural interventions in this city to make it the world-class capital, it should be. Because we will talk about flooding, about drainage, about BRT, about mass transit. Unless you get 200, 300 billion at a go, then the governor is a glorified cashier, paying salaries, and collecting garbage, which is not even efficient, if you do it in that way. And so I would want to invite the Senate, and even through our committee in COG of Budget and Finance, to actually have a critical analysis of subnational financing, because it would not work the way we're going. We have put in place certain measures, which I'm very happy to report on today. And these measures have led us to raising the highest amount of revenue in the history of devolution at 12.8, which is the current report that is being looked at. We've used the same even for our water company. Senator Osoti's committee will be looking into that, because we made them go beyond the ceiling they had of 8 billion, and they raised 10.5 billion Nairobi Water, which is more than many counties raised. Actually, possibly 10 to 13 counties combined, in terms of collections, reducing non-revenue water. How we've done that, if you allow me to go into the specific examples.
Governor, I appreciate that. And actually my query was over and above the 12 billions, the 10.5 billions.
Yeah.
From on CARA, you expect to get how much?
Around 20 billion. Around 20 now that it's been reviewed.
We are all in consensus that you cannot develop and run Nairobi with 20 billion plus 12 billion plus another 10 billion. It is insufficient. And of course,
which are the 10 billion?
The one from Nairobi Water.
Oh no, yeah, that is for
yes, and that's ring fence for. In fact, even that 10 billion
is not enough.
Is not sufficient to provide sanitation and water services to Nairobi.
Yeah.
And really, the question is, what is the thinking? Because the Urban Areas and Cities Act requires that there should be specific financing for cities, but it does not come through DORA. You have to go and negotiate a deal before Treasury. I don't know who you've been talking to to acquire the additional 4 billion. Why can't we institutionalize that conversation so that it is not a begging mission by the governor of Nairobi to the national government? How can we help you to institutionalize it and to ring-fence it? Because the money you have is not enough.
Chair and Governor, you can take this together. There's something Senator Cherargei said about your friendships. At least I know that one of your friends, my party leader, has taken a position on division of revenue.
Yes.
All those things you are saying, when you discuss with your party leader, what does he say about your views? Because at least mine is clear on how much money should come to the counties. I just want to know, what does he say about some of the things you're saying? And number two, we have had a conversation in this city about the money that is owed by national government institutions through unpaid rates to the Nairobi City County. Again, I want to understand, when you have those conversations with your party leader, who's the head of state, what is his position on these things? Or should we wait until your other friend becomes the head of state so that these things can be done?
I thought we were keen on institutionalizing the conversations rather than basing it on the friendship.
On a more substantive issue, Governor has alluded to that in the history of devolution, I don't know whether within Nairobi City County or across the country, he has collected at 12.8 billion.
Yes.
In comparison to what? Because, you know, when he says what is the target and the revenue potential, I don't know whether Dahir, you can tell us what is the revenue potential, or Salatu is here, the revenue potential of Nairobi City County, because what governor is collecting of 12.8 billion is that the auditor does not have the view of the system in itself. And maybe governor can be gracious as he is today and smiley today, is that he should tell us how much under Nairobi Metropolitan Services, and he cannot run away from this because he was the area senator, and then how much were they collecting comparison to 12.8 billion that you are talking about? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and I think, Governor, it's also fair when you congratulate yourself on 12.8.
Such financing agreements based on their work, you know, their balance sheets, we'd have seen a lot of progress. I'm glad we're not getting the 140 million extra, which is concluded from Northern Collector 1. Remember, Nairobi receives 525 million liters daily. We need 900. So we've just bridged the deficit a bit by 140 million. Areas like Karen, like the Ruta, Ngando, which had never been getting water. I know we'll commission soon the pipes at Embakasi Garrison going down into Mihango and Utawala. Will change lives of many Nairobians. Those who get water twice will get thrice. But yeah, coming back to...
Yes, make it very brief. Senator Cherargei says we are now sounding like we're doing a state of the county address.
No,
so
just answering questions.
I'll give you about 3 minutes to wind up so that we come back to the agenda.
Chair, the Senator for Nairobi, my friend Senator Sifuna, has asked a critical question on the philosophy of devolution of certain individuals in our country. I want to say that never before has the capital gotten support in terms of sitting down together, thinking through the problems? I know that the support Governor Kidero didn't get, Governor Sonko didn't get, possibly didn't ask for, but he didn't get that. But the president has created an atmosphere where we can sit down and say, look, we need to sort out the city. If you look at the investment going into the river regeneration project, which is under a commission that we jointly set up, we have representatives of Nairobi there. And recently Bishop Wanjiru went there.
Which someone was doing a comparative analysis talking about similar projects, but I think it was in London at the Thames.
Yeah.
It was headed by an engineer. Yours is headed by an evangelist.
Let me not say too much about the individual.
But baptism happens around rivers, so you.
Oh my goodness. But if you look at that plan, and it will really excite you as a Nairobian, because you have an inverted city. The rivers were hidden. If you look at the 1926 master plan of the city and 48, the settlers wanted the higher areas. And so they created what they called a buffer zone, which became the slums. That's when there's floods. It's affecting Kibra, Mukuru, Madare, Huruma, all of those. Now that is going to change. But close to 70 billion shillings has been secured by the national government to support that work, plus what Nairobi Water is going to do. So, yes, the president is in full support to the capital. I think he said it as recently as Sunday. And this framework that we're working on with the minister for roads, that they would then inject, in the beginning 4 billion, the total cost is 11 billion, I think is an example of that kind of support. I can only speak about that kind of support to Nairobi because I can see it. And I feel it. The number of, I think we're the only county that has had a joint cabinet meeting of my cabinet and the national government sitting across the table, the president chairing that side, the governor of Nairobi on this side, saying what do we need to do for the capital? Because you must realize, in as much as it says the capital city shall be governed like any other county, that because it's the seat of the national government and also a diplomatic, this is the only UN headquarter in the global south, then special arrangements need to be done. So I hope I've answered Senator Sifuna in terms of the personal philosophy of the head of state when it comes to devolution in Nairobi County.
Senator Nyuka?
Governor, you sure you'll do those things?
Lazima work. We have to.
Okay, I'll check on you next year.
We have to do it because I'll come back to the people of Nairobi.
Well, for it to work, you need what we call means of implementation, and resources are extremely important. Financial and human resource.
Yes.
Some of these things you're talking about, Nairobi River, you could be innovative and seek climate financing. You see, the definition of climate finance could include when you have to raise a bridge because there's rising water in the rivers. That qualifies for climate finance.
Yes.
And I think the team you assemble around you should not just be thinking of how to use kanjos to collect more, but to look at some of those global funds that have been established. The Green Climate Fund, GCF, when in Baku, they're having quiet conversations. They're thinking of setting up their regional headquarters in Nairobi.
Wonderful.
The Global Center on Adaptation, during the Africa Climate Summit, they declared they're going to set up their headquarters in Nairobi. So Nairobi is not just a UN headquarter, but it could be the climate headquarter for this region.
For the world.
So those are innovative areas that you guys must think through. But please, our job is not just to fight with you over cents and coins in your revenue systems. Our job is to enable you to deliver, to put in place proper institutional frameworks for delivery. But if you squander the opportunity, then perhaps your 4 or 5 years will have the same report card as the one for Kananu, and as the one for Mutura, and as the one for Sonko, and as the one for Kidero.
Chair, I share your skepticism, and I'm sure the governor knows me well to be a proper cynic. We don't like stories in Nairobi as well. We just want to see output. So you are saying the philosophy is positive from those heading the executive. I would expect that if that was the case, there are 100 million shillings million US dollars that is stuck in Nairobi in the treasury for the water project. He should be able to unlock it as head of state. The BRT at Thika Road, why is it stuck? Nothing is happening. The compensation for the people who are evicted for the Nairobi River, you're talking about billions of shillings. They were promised only, I think it was 10,000 shillings each. They have not seen that money. So in terms of output, Governor, which one of those things are you confident that you can deliver for the people of Nairobi before we go into the elections? Which one are you sure 100% that we will get to do? Can you at least promise us that that boulevard you are promising us along the river will be done before we go into the next elections? Because my job will be to remind you.
And I know you're good at reminding me.
Maybe Senator Cherargei, so that the governor responds and we move on.
Well, the governor has a good vision. Also, it is important that apart from river regeneration, the issue of infrastructure, there was a small matter of Wakulima market that he went ahead and gave problems to my friend then. So what are you doing about it? Because we saw a number of traders didn't want to be relocated to some Kangundo or somewhere. They wanted to be within CBD. And you know, and they are now back on the road. And Senator Sifuna would want to have fresh mboga for his ugali when he's having ugali within the CPD, because we don't want him to be traveling far outside the CPD. What are you doing about it?
Senator Dulo?
Chair, just a general comment to Senator Governor Sakaja. There was a proposal, you remember in the last Senate, that I don't know whether it was the current ML or Senator Gitura proposing that Nairobi County status should be removed. Now that you have a feel of Nairobi County, do you think it's worth moving that direction, or you still feel that Nairobi should remain a county? Thank you.
Chair, devolution is the greatest gift given to this country by the 2010 Constitution. 10% of our population is in Nairobi. It would be really wrong to deny them that gift. Many people have felt that when things under the national government, they work better. I think the experiment that happened a few years ago shows the contrary. A question was asked on how much, Cherargei asked how much revenue NMS raised. The first year they did 8.9, then 10.5. Immediately we surpassed that. Despite them having the military, the guns, even the bombs, we were able to raise more without fighting the people, without even introducing a new revenue raising measure in this past financial year, but in digitizing fully. All our revenue streams are digitized and making sure there's compliance and convenience. You know, somebody wants to pay for their single business, unified business permit from their shop in Coyote and print it for themselves and have an e-verification. And that is why we've been able to raise the highest amount and to have one license. You know, before they used to be 5-6 licenses. You're told first back to the county, you're told to go to 14th floor for advertising. You're told now it is one license, you know, at our revamped customer service center, which you should visit, because the County Government Act asks all counties to have a customer service, a place where the first ones to set that up. So the notion, the idea that has always been there, which is an anti-devolution, sloganeering to paint counties as inefficient, is a lie. Assuming that there are angels in national government and demons in the counties is wrong. And they say give a dog a bad name and then you kill it. If you look at the efficiencies created by devolution, that lady in Mutuini, who knows that she can actually get, her representative there to sort out her medical issues. If you go to Udhiru Rudhimitu today in Nairobi, they have their first tarmac done by the county government. If you go to Njadaini in Zimmerman, they have never seen a project. They are seeing it now. Ruai, which is an eighth of the county, Ruai ward, it's probably, I think, a sixth to an eighth. It's the biggest ward. Today, the first tarmac being done, 147 million shillings worth, is being done by the county government of Nairobi. And so what happens in countries that have that dilemma is they move from their bustling economic capital to another part of the country and create a seat of national government. In Australia, they moved from Sydney and they went to Canberra and they formed the capital city. In the US, they moved that time either from New York or New Philadelphia to the District of Columbia, Washington, which has no senator. It just has a mayor, it has no governor, because it's the seat of the national government. Land was provided by Delaware and Virginia and the rest. If you go to Nigeria, they moved from Lagos and created Abuja as a seat of national government. And so if there's that idea, I think Isiolo would be good, Senator Dulo, because you're in the center of the country, geographical center. That is where the national government should move to. But Nairobians born and raised here in this city and those who've come, who we embrace deserve devolution. Chair, the next question by Senator, by yourself. Thank you so much. That is the kind of thinking that I'm at. There is a lot that we can get from climate adaptation. The world has realized that the potential of Africa to sort out climate issues is real. In 1950, Europe's population was 22% of the world. Africa was 7%. Today, as we move to 2050, Europe is 7% and Africa has 25%, meaning 1 out of 4 people are going to be here and 65% will be in cities. And so by 2050, Nairobi will have 10.5 million people. If we don't do climate adaptation, and I'm with you because I know you chair the caucus on climate in Parliament, if I'm not wrong. I'm also the vice chair of C40 cities globally. I deputize the mayor of London. And through that, we've been able to now get support. For instance, solarization of our markets is being done by C40 cities. We're looking at how we can actually get carbon credits for some of our resources in Nairobi, including City Park, which is another issue where at that time of NMS, they created a fake title deed and moved City Park to the national government. Yet we hold the original title. City Park belongs to the people of Nairobi. KFS is there illegally. And these are things that we need, us to interact with the Senate. Right now, it's before the Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee to revert that back to the county. The same way we got back Uhuru Park, and we expect to get back Central Park when their contractor is finished this coming month. And so it is that innovative financing. I've had discussions with colleagues on the continent. The mayor of Cape Town, for instance, Jordan Hill Lewis, did one of the most successful municipal bonds. We have the template to do it. We did an analysis of a green bond by FSD Africa, that what Nairobi can get. If you just remove that limitation in PFM regulations that pegs it on a percentage of revenue, it cannot be how much in 10 years you'll get for sure, front loading it so that you can do that heavy infrastructural work, Chair. I think the final one was from Senator Gerard Gay about Wakulima market. And I'm sorry for whoever your friend you're referring to, I don't know, who ran into some headwinds. Chair, one of the things we said we will do is create order in this city because the city needs order. We're building 20 markets. The markets that have excess people will have to work within their limits. It is true at that point, the political atmosphere had been muddied because we had agreed with the market traders. Someone was saying they introduced me to these people. The chairman of Wakulima Market is called Tony. He was my youth leader in TNA when I was the chairman. Yeah, we know these people. We speak to them. They want those efficiencies. Remember, less than 2 years ago, 52 women were killed in Londiani because of selling on the road. They were killed. Do we wait for an accident in Nairobi for us to relocate them? Yet we've completed a market somewhere for wholesale. So we had agreed, and we'll continue with that plan. And it is not to move the market. It was really expressed badly by friends of Gerard Gay, as is claimed. We're not moving any market. The capacity of Wakulima was 97 trucks. The 90th truck will go to Kangundo Road. The capacity of the traders was around, and today you'll find 300 trucks. The capacity for traders was less than 1,000. The 1,000 and first will go to Kangundo Road. We're building another market. We're redoing Toy Market. Mutuni Market right now, if you go, is moving very fast. And it is right on a bypass.
Yeah. Governor, just on that line, even as we sit here today, the traders who are trading outside Wakulima Market on the streets, they are there now. I've seen it with my own eyes today.
Yeah, and we
so what was the fuss all about? I mean, because the impression you gave us is that you had agreements with the traders to move to Kangundo Road. Why are they still there?
It's not the same traders. It's hawkers.
So, then what is the point of moving one person only to be replaced by another?
You have to keep doing it. On theory, Senator, it's good to say we've moved them. Every single day is an enforcement day. Every single day.
So I work.
It must work.
It is not
That's my work. It must.
But it's not working yet.
It's not working yet.
It is working to a great extent, and I will show you.
So maybe
look at the level of
honorable senators.
How many have you relocated from Wakulima Market to Kangundo? So that, as you say, the people who are selling outside are hawkers.
They are hawkers.
How many have you relocated? And it's good, the chair of Toy and the Wakulima Market, Tony.
I think it would be beneficial for the actual committee to look into those details.
Which actual committee?
Your committee on trade, don't you?
Governor, you have been very generous with information on other matters. When it comes to this, you think it should be handled by another committee? I don't think that's being fair.
No,
Because-
and I'll give you the information.
How you
My
become
apologies.
economical with the truth?
My apologies, Chair. If you look at the turnover of different people who, and you know, they're aching out a living. Chair, in the last 2 years, they have not been running battles in this city, as used to be. You remember, you'd hear stories of hawkers being stabbed with pliers, fighting with the city. You've not had it in 2 years. You've not had a strike of matatus in 2 years because of our continuous engagement with them. And so at times, even if it might, you know, sometimes, you know, have a week of calm and they come back, there's a way we engage them pragmatically and then move them in a humane way. If we took the option of now putting armed police there and start beating up people, it will not work. So yes, there could be days when traders show up, we engage them. You'll find 2 days where it is clean. Eventually, it has to settle. More markets. Right now, the discussion with them is about Mwariro. And they've come to us as recently as last week through my CC. That's why I'm saying a committee would go deeper into it because we're discussing the audit. Through my CC just allow me to finish.
Yeah.
Through the CC of markets, asking that yes, if you can give us space outside the market, the parking area at Mwariro, then we'd be happy to move from there. We want them then, okay, we agree, maybe for some of you, Kangundo is too far, come to Mwariro. It is a continuous engagement. It is not black and white, start and stop. Theoretically it is, but practically when you're actually in there, it doesn't work.
We started off very well. It's like a visit to the doctors, and you need to be very clear about your symptoms so that we know what you're suffering from and prescribe the proper medicine. But now if you start to confuse us on the actual state of affairs in some of these areas, we don't know how to help. Are you sure that none of the people who was relocated from Wakulima is back there? You are saying those are new people.
I can say that very confidently. I can say that quite confidently. Yeah. Because you see even the vehicles have registration numbers.
It's not the vehicles. The overriding, and I even supported you on that. We don't want what happened in Londiani to happen at Wakulima. They're on the road even if we left this room and went there with you now. But you cannot say they are new people. I know some of those traders.
Then convince them to go. If you know, they help us. Let's work together.
On the day I sit there, Governor, I will have the persuasive powers to move them. But you cannot ascribe. You cannot ascribe work that has been assigned to you constitutionally to your senator.
Let me bring this session to a close so that we move to the next one.
Yeah.
But it is our view that just by looking at financial statements is not sufficient oversight over Nairobi.
Yes.
And just as the way we are saying, we need to have different arrangements for cities in everything. We cannot take the approach I take for oversight of Homa Bay cannot be the same approach I take for Nairobi. And so that's why all these comments coming from senators, they are extremely valid and they are within the mandate of this committee. And members, I think Nairobi being just a stone throw away, in the next session, we probably need to be more on the ground. Because instead of talking about Wakulima in a boardroom, all we need to do is to go there. Instead of talking about the rivers, all we need is to go there.
Chair, I have a personal frustration in this committee where I feel that Nairobi doesn't appear as often as other governors. I've seen some governors here more than enough times. And the reason why all these issues build up is because I don't feel like we have enough sessions with Nairobi. So even from your chair, I think you need to give us more time with the Nairobi County government. And lastly, just because he has brought up markets, there was an issue, Governor, we raised with you about Kawa West Market, where your people allowed stalls to be built outside the gate of the market. And you had given us an answer that those stalls will be removed. Have those stalls been removed?
No. And they won't be removed, Senator. What we found when we looked into it, there had been extensive public participation with the people of the market, and there's new construction going on. What they've agreed to do is to do differentiation of what is sold at the stalls, so that you don't have the same product in the market. So I'm happy to furnish you with the public participation report there. I understand, I know you went there, I know the issues I know the chair of that market and the MCA and whatnot, but they'd actually done that participation because I looked into it. I really, just like every other ward, it's a ward very close to my heart. And I've looked into it. Pragmatically, we don't have enough trading spaces for all our people. Even with the new construction, which is going on right now, if you go to see, that even won't be enough. So long as there's differentiation, because you don't want people selling outside the market. What is inside the market? No one will go inside the market, and so you'll kill your own market where you're putting money to. So work with me to make sure that we do that differentiation properly. So
I'll be happy to see the report. If you are telling me that the traders inside agreed to that, I'll be happy to see that report.
Well, we'll share that.
Yeah, I think Nairobi is a complex organization. You are thinking about hawkers, you're thinking about markets, you're thinking about green bonds, you're thinking about BRT, no matter water. So you went for the job, you left us here in Parliament. We will put you under pressure to perform.
I work best like that. And Chair, I think the Senator of Nairobi is correct, and yourself. A lot of the things, you've asked which of these projects will you do, which ones can you do? When you go together to a house in Ngando that has never received water and you open the tap, that is audit. If we go together to Kiumbuini in Westlands and talk to a child who's never been to school every day of the week because of hunger, and now they're eating every day. We're feeding 316,000 children daily at 5 shillings. That is audit. It looks better than the documents. If we go out there to see what this revenue we're raising and that we've increased is doing on the ground. So I'm very happy and open to that. Go to Pumwani and see the first see what is happening in Mutwini, where for the first time, people are being referred from private facilities to a public facility because of the machinery. And one of the questions, actually, Senator Sifuna, when visited us with the health committee, said there's no X-ray. And I put that CEO to task because what he had been telling you possibly was not reflective. Today, go there. It is amazing. So oversight builds institutions. And I am a believer in oversight. I've been a senator longer than I've been a governor. So Chair, I'm very open to that. I think finally, on the questions that had been
that's a final response. Then we go to the report.
Finally, on the questions that have been asked, 2021, which is when NMS just took over, was 10. 21-22 was 8.9. Then when we came, 10.5 billion, which was the second highest in the history of devolution in Nairobi, because the other higher one was 2015-16 when we did regularization. Was 10.5, and the last one is 12.8 billion, which in the last few days we were targeting 13 billion, but as you remember, that was June, and you know what was happening towards the end of June. With a lot of the protests within the city, we had a sharp decline in our revenue collection due to the protests at that time. The potential of Nairobi is extremely high, and I'll give you an example, and I need your help as a Senate.
What's the figure for the potential?
For 67 billion. Yeah, that is according to World Bank, to the CRA. They talk about 67. I think
so this is just about 25% of that potential.
And I think it is much higher. The target we put, for instance, annually is our own target. When we say we want to do 20 billion, we believe that with measures and everything held constant, we can get to 20 billion. And I'll give you an example without specifying the current transaction. It might jeopardize it. One of the regularizations we're currently doing in Nairobi, in part of Eastlands, just one scheme with 20,000 settlers, going to give us 7 billion at a go in the next few days if we conclude. Right now they're conducting an aerial survey. People had settled in. It was privately owned. They have built buildings without approvals of the county government. We've said for each and every approved subdivision, because we have to approve the subdivision.
But that's a windfall because you won't get it in the subsequent year.
Yeah, but that's what happened in 15-16. So that's a windfall, and that's one scheme. We've not looked at, there's so many schemes. There's Kiamudandora, there's Embakasi Ranching, there's the whole of pipeline. And so currently, we have two options. We have the regularization bill in the County Assembly of Nairobi, but we also have PLUPA, the Physical Land Use Planning Act, on which we can do that regularization of unauthorized developments. That alone can give us extra from the 12.8 billion, another extra 20-30 billion. Support we need from you. The biggest revenue stream in any city is property taxes. Yeah, globally. Even in Nairobi, it's land rates. I'm happy with my team that we were able first to move to a recent valuation rule. Every other part of the country is stuck in 1980s valuation rule. We are at 2019 valuation rule, but it's 0.015% of the value, which is okay because you don't want to shock people with 3 times or 4 times what they've been paying. Even for those who what they need to pay today is more than twice, they can only pay twice. If it's more than 100% of what you're paying, we've allowed them to pay in installments. So you can pay monthly for 10 months, leaving 2 months for enforcement action by us. But here's a challenge, Chair. 2 things. One, in our records, we have 175,000 parcels with attributes. This means it's 175,000 billable properties. And we have around 50,000 accounts on Nairobi Pay. The 50,000 accounts do not cover the 175,000 parcels. The Ministry of Lands has 255,000 parcels in their records for Nairobi with attributes. We have been working to get this data, but it's been almost elusive to get it. Because what we want is to be able to know who to bill and then who to enforce on. If we just do that fast, even with the current rate, then what we get from property taxes is going to more than double, because you're talking about 50,000 accounts. Very few people have more than one parcel, you know.
Chair, just so that we help the governor. Governor, the CS of Lands has been so far very cooperative on matters that we have raised, especially affecting land grabbing in Nairobi, starting with Tomboya Social Hall and the others. So that is something we can do for you as a Senate. Bring that request through your senator. We will be able to get that information for you.
Thank you, Senator. Governor, I think we need to stop there and come back to this report, because even some of those figures have a bearing on the receiver of revenue. In fact, I was just looking at the top page of this report, where the Auditor General talks of your collection of 450 million from property rent. I think it's quite inverted. Ideally, property rent, as you said, in a city should be higher than land rates. That's what you're saying.
No, when I say property taxes, I mean land rates. Property rent is our houses. So those who are in Kanzo flats, in Eastlands, in Woodley, that is what we call it.
That's a 450 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just come back to the systems environment. For avoidance of doubt, and Governor, as you said that the ongoing audit, you are afraid that the past transgressions might discolor your current report. We must make it clear that if there are transgressions in the past, the persons responsible must also be held to account. There is need to look at the current situation, but that does not mean running away from responsibility on the past issues. Whoever was a receiver of revenue, whoever was in charge of revenue during those past periods, if there are unresolved matters, the position of the committee is that they also must be held to account. So can we do a quick review of the systems environment? And we'll go to your report. I think it didn't have a header, it didn't have a date, it didn't have a signature. And so, Governor, when you said they were waiting for your signature, I wonder where that signature was.
The signature is on the cover, as is on the cover letter.
So
these are annexures.
So let's go to the supplementary questions that the Senate had asked with regards to governance structures for revenue management in the county. The first question was, what is the organization structure for the Revenue Board? Governor, what's your response?
Thank you, Chair. The Nairobi City County Assembly enacted the Nairobi City County Revenue Administration Act of 2021. This establishes a legal and institutional framework and establishes what we call the NRA, the Nairobi City County Revenue Authority. Chair, this act had not been implemented from 2021. When I became the governor of Nairobi, I moved quickly to implement this act by setting up the Revenue Authority, which is headquartered at CBK Pension Towers. We have a fully fledged board chaired by one Andrew Chege, who is an expert in taxation has worked at KRA for a long time. He is part of those who innovated iTax and other innovations on technology. It has a full board which represents different parts of society, including residents, including business community. The vice chair is in the Chamber of Commerce. So we have the organizational structure that I have attached. We have the interim CEO, Dr. Ntoiti, who is here with us. He's the interim CEO of the Nairobi Revenue Authority. He's been the CEO of Meru Revenue Authority. But before that, he was a player we loaned to Meru. He used to be in Nairobi. But because he comes from there and the governor then wanted homegrown talent, he was on loan for a few years and came back. But he's a great expert in revenue.
Why is he still interim?
He was interim there in Meru.
He introduced himself as interim.
He's director of revenue in Nairobi County Government, but interim CEO at the Revenue Authority. The board is undertaking recruitment for substantive CEO. And so we've seconded him to the authority while just to help them, get the administration moving. But the board, according to the Revenue Act, the Revenue Administration Act, are the ones to recruit. Currently, there's a tender. If you look at the public procurement portal, tender 148, on request for proposal of recruitment consultancy services for position of Chief Executive Officer, Revenue Administration for Nairobi Revenue Authority. That one is currently on the portal. We can share the reference for that, Chair.
So that's still live?
It is live as we speak.
Okay, we proceed then to the number of employees deployed in revenue collection.
So currently there's 1,298 staff who are deployed for revenue collection. The staff, the list of all of them, their IPPD numbers and their workstations are attached. Chair, there are different departments there. We have those who do revenue from building plans. We have those who do sundry debtors. There are those who do rental and markets. These are the markets which are on the TPS scheme, tenant purchase scheme, advertisements, revenue, building materials unit, city funeral homes. We have now revenue officers in all our hospitals and proper, finance structure. You remember there had been an issue in auditing of level 5, level 4 hospitals, which are led now by CEOs, which was also an intervention we brought in. We have the DCU, which is the enforcement unit. We have rates, and part of what we want to do in enhancing revenue is a fully fledged department, property tax, as is the case. We've benchmarked cities across the world. You have it fully fledged. You have what we call tax bargaining, so that you can actually establish the correct value of taxation to be paid. So, Chair, that is the structure.
How does automation affect the numbers? Do you expect that with great automation, the numbers will reduce? Just this morning, I was driving through the city and I saw parking revenue officers, and there are quite many wearing those jackets saying corruption is evil.
It is evil.
I thought you should say it is illegal because not everyone believes in your faith.
No, but there are very few legal.
Evil is a matter of faith. So should we expect the numbers to reduce as a result of automation? Because this is a huge army.
It is a huge army. Remember, this is a city of 5 million people. There's only 1,200. Even with automation, a system is as good as what you feed it. And so you need people querying physically, querying the payments done. And sometimes I'm sure you see some of the mistakes done when you get an SMS saying you parked in town and your vehicle has been in the garage. And normally that's a human error. They'll put your vehicle KAD and mess one number. And so we keep trying to improve that, either through taking a photo of the number plate instead of keying in the numbers. Some people have these fancy plates where, the B looks like an E, and we are working with NTSA to make sure let it be standard so that we are able to capture it properly. So,
Governor, do these people have the right job title? If we have an automated revenue collection system, that work that you're describing is not revenue collection, is it?
In terms of?
And that is why the chair was saying, because we have gone through the discussion about our wage bill, where our entire equitable share is consumed by wage bill. So how can automation not result in a reduction of the wage bill? And that job that you're describing, really, is that a proper name for the work that these people do?
The job of parking attendants?
No, you're calling them revenue collectors. Staff deployed for revenue collection.
Chair, some of these terms are statutory terms. PFM 158 determines that they must be revenue collectors. Yeah, so that is under PFM. But the specific designation of which revenue they collect then depends on the revenue stream. But the PFM stipulates that we must actually have them as revenue collectors who report.
So back to the question that the chair raised. How can automation not have any impact on our wage bill?
It has an impact, but you see what you do is that you then redeploy, because you will not fire PNP people because you've gotten a revenue solution. You actually retrain them and use them until their time goes. What you reduce is new employment. People have worked in City Hall for years, they're about to retire or they're in their 40s. Because of technology, let's not have the situation in the tea farms. Senator Terergay will remind you of a visit we did when I was chair of Labour and he was a ranking member. And we went to George Finlay, is it George Finlay or who Finlay? James Finlay. And they're saying these machines are getting us out of work. We have a big unemployment problem. And so while we might reduce the employment, we cannot fire people because of user technology, because once that thought comes out, they will sabotage the technology that is currently being deployed. And so it is really retraining them to make the systems more efficient, Chair.
It will then be a point of convergence that these are not revenue collection officers. They no longer do that work.
They help revenue collection by verifying that you've paid the revenue. They don't receive cash. Actually, we've closed our cash office. There's no cash office in Nairobi County because everything is electronic. And we want to continue doing a campaign, which I'm sure you'll help us as a senator, to sensitize people across the city. If anyone asks you for cash, it is them you're paying, not the county government, And part of it, actually, if I may, has made us reduce some charges. I'll give you an example. There were trailers, the fee for trailers parking in Russell area was 3,000 shillings. But the bribe was 1,000. And so we said, let's make the fee 1,000. So it was reduced. We're collecting more now with a lower amount because now, if the bribe is the same as you'd rather just pay, instead of going through those. So we've actually reduced some of those rates, but widened compliance and we're collecting more through that, Chair.
Okay, we'll then maybe when you're doing your audit also, maybe look at how these numbers have been growing. Because you have 1298. Has that been the number over the years? Is it increasing? Are you recruiting more? Are you still putting more money on automation?
We can look at that. Currently, we've just shortlisted 43 revenue clerks. The 43 had been at our customer service center, which I would really invite you to come visit at City Hall Annex on the first floor. There had been, not 43, 40. There had been casuals for a long time, young people who really helped us revamp, build this revenue. And we felt that it's good to confirm them. So that's the only recruitment, apart from the CEO and the top directors of the Revenue Authority. And then now the discussion is going on who within the current establishment of the county government then transitions to the Revenue Authority. It's a very sensitive discussion because there's some things you want to replicate, there's some things you don't want to transfer to a new institution. And so that is an ongoing discussion. Chair, I'm very alive to labor issues. You know, I've been chair of labor and I'm also chair of labor at the COG. And so you must be alive to contractual obligations that you currently have with the staff.
Yeah, and I think we also need to urge a human face to revenue collection.
Yes.
I visited a flower, these roadside operations where they sell potted plants. There's an army of KRA people. I think that was when KRA had hired some people to move around premises to ask all sorts of funny questions. This lady tells me that the KRA people would come in the morning, the Kanjo guys would come in the afternoon.
Yeah.
There would be fees paid through the system, but there's an informal mafia going around.
Yeah.
There are fees that are collected by those persons. And that's why when you talk of the 1,298, some of them could be industrious citizens, but some of them frustrating small and medium enterprises. I think the lady was telling me that she would part with 500 for KRA, another 500 for Kanjo, and she's just selling flowers. One bougainvillea, perhaps, she sells at 50 shillings. By the time she sells enough to make 1,000, it means that she has had to sell almost 50 seedlings. You can clearly see, to have 50 seedlings is a lot of money, is a lot of effort, but then it's taken away by those who purport to be collecting tax. And they are not getting any service in return anyway, because they draw water from nearby stream. They are not even using Kanjo water to water the plants. And I think that's a conversation, that's a concern that many Nairobians doing those small businesses have. Salons, liquor shops, florists, or those roadside. Let's put a human face to revenue collection.
Chair, I'm in full agreement with you. Of course, on a light note, if you see KRA is taking the same amount, possibly that should be the share of revenue also. We should do 50-50. But seriously, it is the reason why we even published in the newspapers who the inspection officers are. Before what you'd have, and we're really moving away from it. In the mornings, tomorrow somebody comes, pest control. The next day somebody else comes on advertising. And we said that there's only going to be one inspection team. What we've now moved to, as we finish our biometric exercise, which is speaking to our wage bill, is that then we will deploy what we deployed in Nairobi Water. In Nairobi Water, we've deployed something called Chitambulishe. But if somebody comes to your house purporting to read the meter or to be an officer, you can actually use an USSD code, type it out, and they'll tell you if Edwin Sifuna is a meter reader or not. And you can even go further and press a link and see their photo. Because somebody can come with your ID, knowing that Peter Karanja is a meter officer. So we're doing that as well. So one inspection team that has all the cadres published, you can tell that, and the numbers look many, but they're not. Remember, we have 85 wards. If you look at Kamkunji sub-county revenue officers, for instance, Isili North, there are 14 officers. You know the number of businesses in Isili, and business premises. 14 officers is not an overkill. 14 officers are sufficient because what we tell them is our approach towards revenue is not punishment but compliance. And so they come, they look at your license, and they tell you, look, this license actually is not genuine. There's an e-verify sticker, with a QR code. And then they walk you through with our compliance application how to get the proper license. And that is why today, if you look at the city court, the numbers are much less than used to be. City court used to be like remand of industrial area. Of course, it is not perfect. We're continuously improving it because you'll find one or two rotten eggs, and that's why we want to deploy a system where Nairobians can actually tell us.
That's what I wanted to go to, Governor. In other jurisdictions, we have departments of internal affairs.
Yes,
where members of the public can report this thing, and it is sometimes the situation on ground, as they say, is totally different. The sort of friendliness that is required from those officers for you to even check their identification is sometimes not always there. And it is very easy to theorize and say you can ask them, like the way they tell Kenyans, you can ask a police officer to show you his identification or force number. But for ground, by the time you are checking, you are in the back of that. Yes, you said you cleared all the old ones. Now we have new prison buses.
Chair, the Nairobian of today is defiant in a positive way. They don't take. I love how you see Nairobians recording people doing the wrong thing. And you see, as we develop this, I would want Nairobians to be able to show us that officer. There are many masquerading as our county officers, and that's why I want my officers to be fully, recognizable and identifiable so that if you have a record on video, there's something I'm working on in our finance bill, in our finance act, which turns all Nairobians into inspectors. So any Nairobian can actually record an intervention of the law and help us even verify. If you find this one is fake and you report it, split the fine with them. That if you're to pay 10,000 for the license and the fine is 5,000, take 2,500 and give us 2,500. It's something we're working on. Because compliance is for the benefit of all of us. If people are jumping traffic lights, the inconvenience is not to the governor. It is to you in traffic. You should be able to also record and help us nab that person. So, culture change, organizational change in terms of values is a process. It doesn't happen in a day or in a year. But many will tell you that the officers have become a bit friendlier. And those rogue ones, I want to know them because they're giving us a bad face. They don't look like what we want to give Nairobians. Our second principle is dignity. Chair.
Yeah, I think as Senator Sifuna says, on the ground, things are different. So those were the governance arrangements. We have seen the appointment letters for the receiver of revenue and the list of the revenue collectors. The second supplementary question was on the information systems used in revenue collection. Now, you listed in the responses before us, live forms, which you have indicated is no longer in use. You listed the second system after live forms was Jumbo Pay. Is Jumbo Pay still in use?
No.
The third system you listed was Revenue Sure. Is Revenue Sure still in use?
No.
And then the fourth system you listed was Nairobi Pay system. Is Nairobi Pay system in use?
Yes.
So that's the current system that is utilized.
Yep.
Is it only one or there are other systems beyond the Nairobi Pay system?
The system in use today is Nairobi Pay. Nairobi system has different modules.
So, honorable members, because the Auditor General will be employing the services of a systems auditor.
Yes.
And one of the substantive issues that was raised in the audit report was that multiplicity of systems and the lack of interfaces or proper migration in between the systems that the Auditor General can handle. Mark?
Yes, Chair. We have a specialized department that deals with the information systems audit. Thank you, Chair.
So if that is the case, could we focus, just go through the system currently in use, so that the Auditor General can then interrogate the other aspects of data migration, other aspects of integrity of systems, other aspects of integrity of data in those systems, so that we deal with the system currently in use in Nairobi. If that is a consensus, then let's look at your responses on Nairobi Pay system. Who is the developer of this system? Governor?
Thank you. The responses are as I've given. The developer of the system, or rather the system vendor, is the national government through the Ministry of ICT and Digital Economy.
Under what framework was this done? Because we know that the National Treasury is struggling to come up with an integrated county revenue management system. And so why would the National Treasury be pursuing that? And yet the Ministry of ICT has already developed something that is in use in Nairobi.
Chair, I will not be able to answer for the Treasury, but what I can do is give you the background of the system. Chair, remember in 2019, 2020, Nairobi County Government then, through its CEC of Finance, appointed KRA as an agent to collect revenue for them. KRA, of course, took it up with much alacrity. However, they realized they have no system because they could not deploy ITAX or the systems that they have. And so they engaged the national government through a multi-agency team, of course, spearheaded by ICTA and the Ministry of ICT, to develop a system. They had what they called JNAM, the Joint National Mapping. They did a lot of GIS work. They did work on Lands Ministry. They did RDSASA. They did many of those components, including a revenue system for Nairobi. Chair, when we got into office, we found a system operating with the developers. And unlike what happens in many cases, I'm sure you've seen cases where every governor comes and sets up their own system, or they look for a vendor, a private sector vendor who can, provide a system for whichever reasons. Chair, we said, if it's not broken, don't fix it, let's make it better. And so we adopted the system, but we said, number one, the capacity must be within the county government. We must host the system, and we must be able to give full instructions that we no longer have an agent collecting on our behalf. We are collecting it with our staff. For transition and for ease of, because revenue is two things, Chair. Revenue collection is systems and operations. Systems include technology and devices, and gadgets, what you use to query the vehicles. It includes interconnections between NTSA to tell us the number plate, KRA to tell us the PIN, all of that. That is the system work. Operations are the cadences you set, that every morning at this time, officers will go to this road, query vehicles, land people will go to this estate, look at LR numbers, etc. And so I wrote to the Ministry of Finance directly to KRA, asking for the secondment of 9 officers who had been process champions in the revenue streams to come and shepherd that transition back into the city. If you did a hard stop completely, we would have lost a lot of time and money. And that is what possibly allowed us to continue growing our revenues. So what we're currently doing, Chair, because it is the architecture of the system is software as a service. I'm the one actually who came up with the name Nairobi Pay and Nairobi Plan. It was more or less nameless. I think they call it Taifa Pay at some point. There was no brand. And when you're selling a solution to the public, you need to brand it. The user interface must be easy. If you dial *647# on your phone, you should be able to see step by step, create an account, put your ID, what do you want to pay, is it land rates, is it parking, etc. So the user interface, for the friendliness of it, we call it Nairobi Pay. So that is...
What was the effective date for this system?
Effective date in terms of?
When did you start using it? Like, when did you migrate to it?
That must have been 2020, actually. Let my chief officer revenue just check.
Yeah, and Governor,
he was also chief officer Smart Nairobi, so he's also in the ICT space.
Chair, the question you're asking is best answered by a document. There has to be a document that speaks to the framework.
There's a document, Appendix 2, 4C.
What is that document?
It's a memorandum of agreement between the city county government, NMS and KRA into the integrated management system for Nairobi.
The one that was signed by Anne Kananu on 15th November 2021.
Yes. And beyond that, there's that's the document. And the different articles talk about the scope, the adoption of one system, Nairobi revenue system, talks about how to roll it out, data migration and reconstruction, system training for users, stakeholder engagement, dispute resolution. Signed by Her Excellency Anne Kanan Mwenda, acting governor at that time, Mohamed Badi, Lieutenant General, NMS, and the Commissioner General of KRA, Gidhim Buru.
So, Governor, the last time we were here, there were conversation about the ownership of this system. And I think your answer then was that it is fully owned by the county government.
Yes, Chair, that time the discussions were that it's our system. We own it, that's why we're not paying anyone. We're not paying any commission, any development fee, because the thinking at that point was, government is government, so let's support the county of Nairobi, and that is why I answered as much as the support framework and the memorandum had been between those three entities. you realize one of the entities feels it does not exist anymore, which is the NMS. It's just us and KRA, and KRA no longer collect for us. Part of what we've been migrating actually has been accounts which have the KRA title in terms of the collection accounts.
So, Governor, these are very interesting agreement because it doesn't specify the duties, responsibilities, rights of any of the parties there. Why are these parties? Why was this agreement even necessary? Because it doesn't speak to any of the responsibilities. Is it the whole thing? Because I can see only 3 pages.
And that's the 2021 agreement. You remember that all of us were against this. Because against this at that time, when I was in the Senate, because of those very reasons. And which is why, if you look after that, we have what we call the technical support framework 9, put down on the 16th of March this year, that actually looks at the specific roles, maintenance, performance improvement, removing outdated functions, system host. This is more specific what the roles are and what the ministry's roles are. It is signed by our county secretary, our chief officer, Smart Nairobi, who is here. He's now chief officer revenue, and the ICT authority. So we want to
Governor, if you look at that document, they are missing, at least from my bundle. The even numbered pages are not here.
It must be a printing issue. Just
that is correct, because from page 3 of 9 we go to page 5 of 9, and then page 7 of 9.
Apologies, that must be a printing error. We
need to get this complete document, because this is extremely useful for our work.
Yes.
Why should the Treasury be talking of developing another system with the Ministry of ICT already as a system that is in the country? And it's not for you to answer, as you had said at the beginning, but we really want to understand what the Ministry of ICT is offering Nairobi to guide us, whether this then ought to be the solution that could be standardized and rolled out to the other county governments.
In fact, Governor, for the few pages that are here are worrying me even more. You have been very categorical that Nairobi Pay is owned by the Nairobi County government. If you go to page 3 of that agreement, page 3 of 9, there is Article 1.3, which says headed purpose. And it starts by saying the Nairobi Pay system is owned by the national government of Kenya.
Yes, Chair, as I explained, at the point when I gave that response then, the thinking and the agreement was that just how's this thing you guys go on with it? When they moved into software as a service, that because there's development cost, the infrastructure by those machines, we want it to be ours, but we don't own those machines. And so we said, okay, continue offering it as a service, as we then now install our own. We have a running contract of development with Technobrain. Eventually, it will all migrate into Technobrain, because even as you support a county with a service, it cannot be in perpetuity.
But just give us clarity, Governor.
The situation now is
who
what
owns Nairobi Pay?
The situation now, as we speak,
yes,
is what is in this technical framework. Nairobi Pay system is owned by the national government,
not by the county of Nairobi.
No. The thinking that time changed. What I want for Nairobi County is for us to fully, own now, because of the technical expertise. We have everything. Maybe we may not have the immediate resources to buy those servers and whatnot at this point, but that is what we're moving to. There's a running contract with the Technobrain that had been there earlier. We actually compelled by the court to conclude it, and they're now working on the same, mirroring this module, so we don't also shock Nairobians with changes in how they pay
You want to change again?
No, we want to own our infrastructure.
Why?
Because counties should own their revenue infrastructure.
But this is software as a service. This is it's a rental model. The tree has developed it. I mean, you don't want to buy Amazon. You don't want to buy the entire Microsoft when you can just get a license to use Microsoft products. That's the basis of software as a service.
Say you've been in IT, And you know, a full ERP system can have a strong revenue module. We found a running contract with Technobrain that if you cancel would cost Nairobians another 800 million shillings.
What was the contract for?
It was a full ERP system.
When was it executed?
When was it? 2020.
2020.
Yes.
Just 1 year before this framework agreement.
Yeah.
And Governor, you see, this is what brings confusion.
Yeah.
Because if you don't own the system, you're saying it is given to us for free. Your submission was that we don't pay anyone for anything.
As of now, we don't.
Is there a service fee on that USSD?
There's a service fee on the SSD. I'm saying Nairobi County does not pay a commission.
Yeah, just a minute.
Agency.
Where does that go?
The provider of the USSD service. Who is it? Tilly. Yeah, the provider of the SMS. You get OTP prompts. The provider gets that amount. Which
so
is,
who's that person?
Give them the details. Let them give the specific company.
Chair, maybe if I differentiate between the system and USSD. USSD is hosted by what are called premium rate service providers, who are normally contracted by, who actually now get this from Safaricom and actually CA. So there's a premium rate service provider who hosts our USSD, which then we connect to the system. This is a separate issue from the system, the hosting of the USSD. So we pay Tilil Technologies, which is a company that has approvals from ICTA on hosting and CA on hosting. So those are the people who provide us USSD services.
Now, the governor talks of a Technobrain contract, and I think that's important for us. It's very important disclosure. If something was executed with Technobrain in 2020, and then in 2021, there was this agreement with the national government, why would you still pursue the Technobrain arrangement? I mean, yesterday the president dropped the Adani deals.
Adani deal have not gotten to the commitment stage.
So
and no payments are
if
being
there
made.
was a commitment in 2020, why then was there this other commitment in 2021?
Chair, leave alone that. There was even revenue share by NBK at the same time that have created liabilities to the city. That's why it became governor. It was so confused in Nairobi County.
But despite that, you're saying you still have
to answer to that.
You still have to fulfill the Technobrain contract.
We do. We'll have a serious liability not to. The negotiations now are looking at the specific modules. Some of them are fleet management for garbage vehicles and for the general fleet of Nairobi.
So what do we use that Technobrain system for?
It is being developed. It's still being developed. We've not finished paying for it.
But we are paying for it.
Yes, we're paying. I think just recently we've paid, or we were to pay around 100 million.
And what would it do that this Ministry of ICT system can't do?
Thank you, Chairman. The Ministry ICT system is a revenue management platform. The contract that was signed with Technobrain is an ERP. So it has different modules. It has case management that the legal people will use to manage their litigation and cases in court and monitor and so on. It has a fleet management system that the people in transport will use. All those modules that you find in an ordinary ERP are in the Technobrain ERP.
Does it have a revenue collection platform?
So the Technobrain arrangement had a revenue module as well. And so we told them, if we manage to get to use these government developed ones, could we have a conversation about varying the contract so that the cost of developing that revenue model, should we decide not to proceed, can you develop another service that we require? And they were open to that. So we formed a technical team that has been negotiating. However, Chair, I must point out that we have not yet made the final decision to drop the issue of the revenue module.
So that particular module is definitely not value for money because you already have an existing solution.
And this one is also run by factors that are beyond our control, this one. So Technobrain would be our product.
Yeah, and the governor has expressed an intention of using a system that we own.
I'd want that.
So there is no intention to terminate or to vary the contract in the terms in which Kerich is speaking.
It's an ongoing discussion. They're developing module by module. Right now, they're finalizing the fleet management.
Chair, I will request the governor, in addition to the missing pages on this integrated county revenue management system agreement, to also provide us with the agreement on the development of the ERP, so that we get clarity on the terms of that contract as well.
Yeah, I think that can be that would be extremely important for us to render our report. Senator Chirake.
Governor, I can see hosting arrangements. You have said in your response that development, test, production, and disaster recovery are hosted by Ministry of Information and the ICT Ministry. So, does it mean that when the revenue is collected from various streams, before they are swept into the CRF, who has a view? Is it you or the Ministry of Information and Technology? Because I can see in your response everything in terms of development, test, production, even disaster recovery, and who has the view at the first instance? Is it you or the Ministry of ICT? And from how many streams are they sweeping, having in mind the receiver of revenue, that there is a new Act of Facility Improvements Act that was given, and I've seen you have been designated for 2 financial years in the appointment letter by CCM Kerich.
Thank you, Chair. The way the software as a service model works is that for a system, you get the instance of that system. And that is why it is possible, the system being hosted in the same place, to even be given to 40 counties. But what the system does, it is revenue management. The collection of revenue is still done within the county bank accounts. And today,
what I'm asking, you don't need to lecture. What I want the view is, who has the first instance view of the collection before being swept to the CRF?
Sorry, Chair. What is a first instance view?
As in, who has a view when the streams are being paid?
We have a view.
You can tell us what you have collected now?
Right now. I can show you.
Can we see it?
I can, just anyone, all of us can see. I can tell you how much.
As also, and then my next, because you say the person who hosts is the Ministry of ICT, does the ministry which hosts, including recovery, have a view of that payment?
No, Chair. The ministry does not have that view.
But from the agreement, it is something different. The annexures you have attached.
Development
means the recovery.
Recovery.
So which means when you have a problem, there's a downtime or a problem with the system, the person you approach for recovery is the Ministry of ICT. Am I right or wrong? Because that's the response of the government.
That's disaster recovery, Chair. But anyway, tell us.
Chair, there's got a big difference between the physical infrastructure and access to the system. When you access the system, that is when you can.
So you are saying you have exclusive access to the system, no any other user can access the system?
Chair, the only persons who can access the system are the Nairobi City County users and the developers.
How many do you have users that can access?
I would say around 600 Nairobi City County users.
600? 600 users can access?
Yeah, to view. Yeah. You need your revenue officer in Korogosho to see how much is coming in from the slaughterhouse. Because they have to report on their performance every day. If the target is 100,000, you need to know what you collected yesterday, how much is coming in today.
By what time in a day?
It's real time.
By 5?
It's a real time.
As in, how do they know they have collected their target? At what time of the day?
Even in, it's real time.
Even midnight?
Real time is all the time.
So all the time, it is real time. You know, you are paying these people 24 hours. I thought they work from 8 to 5 p.m.
I mean, you pay people 8 to 5, but they can open their email at night. Isn't it?
But, Governor, you are telling us you could not sign some documents because it was past business working hours.
I think you're digressing.
I'm not digressing. You are out of order, Governor. You cannot be claiming that you work 24 hours, then you say, no,
I don't know if you got the question he's asking. He's asking if the
beginning to behave like Mutuse.
Yes.
Are you with us?
No, I think.
Chair, I think you not heard what he's asking.
Then why are you answering something if you have not known what you are asking? My question was
It's a wrong question. Yeah.
You have said
Yes.
that somebody in corrugation should know their target. I'm asking at what point? Because if you are saying if it is 100,000 target collection per day, how will they know at what time do they know?
If you have access to a system, you can look at it at any time. It is not shut down.
So if you are collecting from
Somebody can pay parking at 1 a.m.
I agree.
or housing rent at any time.
I'm asking, is there a business that closed by 8 or by 5 in the evening?
And
So does it have target, a specific target? You're saying you need to collect by this time, the amount that you have given your revenue collection officers?
It should be a simple yes or no.
No, it's not a yes or no, because he's asking whether they can see at any time the collection. I told him it's real time. Real time means 24/7. If somebody pays parking at
Governor,
2
can I rephrase
a.m.,
the question?
they can be able to see. Yes.
So you give it 4 hours.
Yes.
So you tell somebody in revenue collector and corrugation that collect 100,000 within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So if they collect more,
Good for them.
not for the county.
If they collect more revenue, for all revenue comes into a system. There's no, that's what I explained earlier, there's no cash payment in Nairobi.
My second question was, how many revenue streams does this system accommodate?
All of the revenue streams, 100.
How many?
How many?
Your ROR is there.
141 revenue streams.
141 revenue streams.
Yes.
Even
And
though
all of them come
the
24 hours.
The contract captures 130 something streams.
Yes.
Well,
That's where I was coming to. Thank you, Chair, for that information.
we are covering
Was that further customization?
further customization. You see, with the system, there are iterations every other day. There's development. That's why you have Microsoft version 1, version 1.
You know that you addendum on that extra.
You can't do an addendum on every iteration of a contract.
No, but I'm saying the fact that you signed for something with 130 and then you are now on about 1 streams. Chair, isn't that not interesting?
Yeah, because one of the reports then would be having the wrong number.
Yeah,
But since the Auditor General is going to do a proper system audit, I think it would be very important that we confirm that the streams, whether they're 140 or 130, are automated and there's actual collection. They are not just automated in theory, but collection is being done through those automated streams.
Chair, my last question. I have seen in Jumbo Pay and other Web Tribe and others, they charge agency fee as percentage. Do you, I asked Senator Sifuna was asking about service fee to the Ministry of ICT. Do they charge you any agency fee and on which percentage?
Not currently. We are
Not
now,
anything.
Not currently.
Not currently.
Because we remember the philosophy then was for us to entirely own the system. As we speak, there's intention from them for the continuous development to have a nominal fee attached to it. That negotiation is going on. The contract is with the Solicitor General.
So they underwrote the system development costs.
Yes,
and the licensing costs.
Yeah, and the licensing. And so now for software as a service, they intend to bring in now the percentage.
You know, I personally, as someone with some knowledge in this domain, in my view, this is the right model. A software as a service approach, it's the right model. We are having chaos, each county wanting to develop its own system. And the average cost of development of these systems or acquisition is about 50 million. So 50 times 47, you've got 2 billion Kenya shillings that is being spent on acquisition of systems. ICT, the trend is towards ICT as a shared service. And so the Ministry of ICT could build this capability and rent it out to counties, software as a service model. This, in my view, would be the most efficient approach. Of course, as a county, you can acquire an ERP. I support that because county governments don't have a human resource management platform. Many county governments, the workflows are not automated. So if Technobrain was to provide an ERP, then I think that's fair enough. As long as you're not duplicating a service that can be provided at a lower cost by the national government. And I'll be very keen to study this model. And maybe we call the National Treasury, call KRA, and that team that was developing another system, and ask them, why can't we just use this that has already been developed by the Ministry of ICT and use it as the base and roll it out to counties?
Yeah, I agree with you. First of all, it's very difficult to argue with you on technology because you're distinguished in that field. The point is, the resistance by many counties is based on their functional, the constitutional functions. And, they feel, look, this is our function in the fourth schedule. It is chapter 12 in terms of what counties raise. No county, or rather other counties, do not want to yield that to the national government because we've had run-ins with the KRA trying to tax on-source revenue. No, you can't tax the revenue that we're raising. They have sent bills, they have sent agency notices to many counties and explain to them, you cannot tax revenue from the counties the same way you're not taxing your own revenue. You can't put VAT on taxes that are, it's like double taxation. And so many counties feel like then if you yield this to the other level of government and not through a transfer in 187, then they will keep that money at source. Then number two, many counties already have contractual obligations that run into years, whether it is Jumbo Pay or whichever other provider. And so what happens to those running contractual? That's why it got into headwinds. But I agree with you. A standardized model and system looking at economies of scale would be good for counties. If counties can collectively do it together, the better. Then you leave the neatness of institutional, responsibilities. But the role of collecting the taxes that counties have been given remains with the counties.
Definitely. That's why you have your officers, you've got your revenue board. Yeah. It does not take it away from you. Yeah. And after all, if MIS is a centralized system, I've not had counties complain about it. IPPD is a centralized system. Life Forms was a national government system. The only place where governors draw the line is when it comes to revenue collection systems. Because we have seen cases, even in the past in Nairobi. One of the conversations, meeting I chaired, Senator Dulo was there, was with regards to the role of WebTribe and how opaque the operations were at some point in Nairobi City County. But if we built centralized competencies at a national government level, software as a service means whatever you're accessing cannot be accessed by Machakos, cannot be accessed by Kitui. Yes. In fact, you can have your own customizations as a county. It does not mean that Homa Bay will be seen. I would really want to drive conversation around this, and I hope that you are not planning to migrate from this, because I hear you say you want to have your system. But yeah, I see where you're going. This is the best framework for county governments. And I want to thank you in advance for you about to commend me for using this as a service. I thank you in advance. Because I have not insisted on our own. There's some things that, of course, as a county, we want to maintain control of. Initially when you got in, and you'd ask for something, and the person you ask has to get permission elsewhere and reports to somebody else. I said, I will not take that. I'm the governor of Nairobi, I'm the CEO. If I ask for a module to be created, you create it. Yeah, because I'm accountable to the people of Nairobi. And until they change that thinking, and now we're completely in charge of any development, and there's nothing wrong with the ministry charging a fee, because when you want a customization, if you have an SLA, then they can have some huge development team, actually amazing young men and women. Around 60. Why I would not want other counties is that I don't want to lose any of them. Of course, they can increase that capacity. You know how software engineers are. And they've really helped us. I must attribute
our success in revenue collection on top of just to my staff, but to that development team. There have been, and I know our system sometimes has downtime, sometimes, it hangs, etc. It is being strengthened. But I take your advice.
Clerk, let's schedule. We must call the Ministry of ICT to just get further information about this system. Senator Dulo, sorry, I've kept you on the line.
I have a couple of questions to Governor Sakaja. Number one, how do you ensure that this system is safe so that there is no tampering as far as the running of the system is concerned? Number two, has this improved your revenue collection and also curb the issues of corruption in exchange for cash? Number three, is this system better than the one that you had before, Jumbo and the rest? Number four, we are being told by so many governors who are actually doing the manual collection up to now that Treasury is working on a system that is accommodated across all the counties. We are trying to tell them no, but they are still insisting. We are waiting Treasury to give us go ahead. So is there anything like that you have discussed at the Council of Governors level? Finally, will you prescribe this particular system to other counties? Because you have tested it, you have proved it that it is improving revenue collection, and it's something that can help this country as far as revenue collection is concerned and also management of the system. Thank you.
I'll take the last three and have Charas deal with the security issue. In terms of administrative, admin rights, etc., and access and firewalls, all of that. Number two was, has this improved revenue collection? Yes. The customizability of it and flexibility, number one, is what enabled us on the 1st of January this year. I was in City Hall while people were still in holiday. And I said, we must move to UBP, which is a unified business permit, where all 6 licenses, whether it is fire, pest control, advertising, etc., license, helped us record the highest amount on UBP ever. Due to this, we've been able to now hit shy of 13 billion, and this year we aim to hit the 20. I know we're going to do it because of when you make everything cashless, then everything comes in. Now, the component that we are focusing on a bit more now is enforcement and compliance. Remember, with the cashless and digital unified business permit, there's self-declaration. And so a business somewhere in Utawala will be able to declare that I am this size of a business, this is what I'm doing, and they go through the module on Nairobi services.go.ke, and they describe their business, and they print out their license themselves and hang it. Now, once that is done, I said we have one team, not different teams, one team that then will come to verify whether you underpaid or overpaid. Of course, very few people overpay, mainly underpay, and then now we bridge that gap. So it has tremendously improved our revenue collection, that I must say. And I would recommend it to all the counties. Of course, as any system, it has its challenges, which we keep building and keep strengthening. Sometimes you'll find downtime because of internet. That is not the system. That is our, environment, the ICT environment that we're strengthening. Our data center at City Hall. Remember, our data center was set up in 2013 and it was not used for close to 10 years. So when I get there and I want to start using it properly, the equipment is end of life, And so and chairman, you understand what that means. You have huge servers and whatnot that are coming to end of life. And so we are still in discussions to same support, that was World Bank support, to revamp that data center. So I would definitely recommend it to all other governors. It's better than what we had before. It is better than WebTribe. It is better than Revenue Sure. It is better than the others deployed. And you know why? When you have a government system, you have data sets within government that you can rely on that a private vendor cannot access. I can access your number plate and tell you and send you an SMS. No other system can do that. I can be, because NTSA will not give a private vendor that database, I can be able to compare with now for Nairobi, for instance. I have a huge database in Nairobi Water. Nairobi Water, every meter speaks to a premise or to a building. And part of what we want to do to increase our revenue, remember, is what we passed in Parliament together, the Sectional Properties Act. Why would one piece of land in Kileleshwa with one house pay the same rates as their neighbor with 60 apartments? And those 60 apartments all have a water connection, a power connection, use of our sewer and our road. Each of those need, and I hope part of the recommendation of this committee will be the end of life of RDA documents, and everybody must get a sectional title for the property. As it is, once your lease expires and you have an apartment with a certificate, the reversionary interest will go back to the owner of that apartment. And so we want to say in 6 months, let's transition all of it, and then we'll then move from an improved site value for rates. You know, today, Nairobi is the only city on the continent that bases its rates on an improved site value. World over, you have developed site value or an improvement indicator, because one house, somebody is staying in a house, it is 10-bedroom house with a lot of water, sauna, swimming pool, and the neighbor, for instance, Githogoro and Runda. Githogoro is an almost informal settlement, but the rate there is the same as Runda. It is not equitable. It is not right. And so you find that property taxes in Kenya are around 0.16% of GDP. World over, you need to move to close to 5% of that GDP, which is what we'll move to, which will give us the resources we're talking about. So the issue of COG, I think, of course, I'm not the spokesperson of the COG, but that discussion has happened, and it is really leaning towards that independence. I think the discussion must go on. The ICRMS that Treasury is trying to do may not be the answer. This is the answer. This what we call Nairobi Pay, you know, we can have Homa Bay Pay, Mombasa Pay, whatever, is really a superior solution. And I can say that because the tax we collect in Nairobi is more than 32 counties combined, you know, and so it's been tested at scale. It's been tested in the most rigorous county. We have the highest number of people trying to pay. You know, you test a system based on the number of hits on it, the number of users everyone getting an OTP per minute. If it can work in Nairobi, it will definitely work in any other county.
Thank you.
Just one last
Senator
question, Governor. I'm coming up with a bill on naming of the streets and also numbering of properties. Apparently, I'm told you have your own legislation.
Yeah.
Do you think this will help yourselves as counties in service delivery and also ensuring that you are able to collect revenue
Definitely.
within your counties?
That's amazing, Senator Dulo. What we have is a physical addressing and street naming policy in Nairobi. It's interesting. The first city to have a GIS-based, the Geomatic Information System-based physical addressing and street naming was Kigali. But it was done by a Kenyan called Steve. May God rest his soul in peace. He had implemented it for Nairobi through the World Bank. Installed it in a room at City Hall. And the room was closed for 5 years until I became governor. Don't open that room. The system had been there, done by the companies called Urepi, installed, room locked. The same guys went, implemented it in Kigali. If you look at e-commerce, and now we're actually implementing it, and we intend to now launch. So that we're working with Google, so that you yourself can go online and see what is your real address. You look for a Boda person, you tell him, bring this thing to Chuilen. And he goes to Ruai, but you're in Karen. Because the people there have named another road Chuilen. You know, the street naming is a scientific process. Of course, it's a democratic process of who do we name the street after or what do we name it after. But in terms of the GIS system for e-commerce, you even get the specific flat number on the system. It is so important to us. Some resident associations have come saying they want to roll it out. I know Muthaiga residents have said they want to roll it out. Karen are discussing that. We want to roll it out for everyone, so that you can actually just check that this is actually number 5B. What we have in advanced cities, which really is basic now, on the left side you have odd numbers, on the right side you have even numbers. And so you know, if this is Harambee Avenue, 1 Harambee Avenue is also the president. 3 Harambee Avenue is Harambee House Annex. 2 Harambee Avenue is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. 4 number, you know, like that is Treasury. So that it is a digitized specific location because we're moving into e-commerce. So I really commend you. Since you're also my friend, I will want to look at the draft to help you on the practicality of it. Because if it then works here, it will work anywhere else. And I'll share the policy that we have as a city. It is World Bank approved.
Actually, it was mentioned to me by your senator. We
Yeah.
had a meeting, and he's the one who said you have a policy or
Yeah, we have
a
the policy.
bylaw.
Yeah.
But we are looking at a system where we have a control countrywide as far as the naming of the streets and also numbering of the buildings.
And even the process.
So I think maybe we can invite you, or maybe we can write to you so that we can have a session together and see we can learn from each other, and then we can share the draft.
You remember on a light note what happened when my good uncle, his name was put in somewhere in Kileleshwa, and people kept removing the street sign of Francis Atwoli Road.
It has all that. We'll discuss.
Okay, let's come back to this. OAG, the system, there's been a lot of talk that the Nairobi system is opaque. No one knows where it sits. No one knows who owns it. And I think we are now getting clarity. And the government is working in too many silos, that the Ministry of ICT could have a system robust enough to support Nairobi City, and then the Treasury is still talking of developing another system. It's just surprising how the state works. And if you give us the assurance that this system is robust, if your system's auditor interrogates this system, checks out its confidentiality, integrity, availability, and all those other attributes, then it is a system that we would want to encourage county governments to adopt. Because I believe that the initial cost of ownership will be much lower. The total cost of ownership will also be much lower than the commercial solutions that are available in the market. There have been suspicions that sometimes whatever is in the database differs from what is reported in the financial statements. We want you to give us that assurance that every single transaction, from that parking fee to single business permit, is traceable and can be accounted for. And what they put in their financial statements corresponds to what is in the system database. This being a fairly new system, I do not expect that there'll be a lot of legacy data issues because, again, the governor indicates here that there was no data migration. So it means that it was a fresh start for them. So in as much as we're impressed with the approach, I think we'll retain just a little cynicism until the Auditor General interrogates the system. And the Auditor General assures us that the system is proper, is well secured, and that nobody can go in and alter records, or nobody can go in and declare the revenue that has been collected. Also important would be to confirm that there's compliance with the PFM, particularly with regards to swiping revenue collected to the CRF. I think we had that problem initially with Jumbo Pay. Look at the issue of trust accounts that have been set up, whether they comply with the law, and then you can advise us. Because we expect you to report by 31st of December, which is just in 1.5 months' time, we want now to allocate you that responsibility of scrutinizing these responses and then giving Parliament a good report on it. It is on the basis of that report that we will now do a proper inquiry. It could be a one-day interrogation, or it could be an inquiry that is organized such that we are able to meet the Ministry of ICT, we are able to meet the county government, and we are also able to maybe go out to the field and see how this thing operates. At the end of the day, when it comes to revenue collection, the governor has put it correctly, that it's not just about the system, there's also the operations as well. We should be able to go to Kijabe Street and ask ourselves how many parking slots are there on Kijabe Street, and how much revenue is coming from Kijabe Street on a daily basis. Or because governor, you know, the rumors in town, sometimes times people say that those who have been in City Hall for a long time